Before starting the surgery, access to the superior conjunctiva and sclera is required. This is achieved by the use of the superior rectus or the bridle stitch. A fornix-based flap is created by cutting the conjunctiva at the limbus to expose the superior episcleral tissue, and the episcleral veins are cauterized with a bipolar eraser to expose the sclera. The start of the scleral tunnel incision is outlined in the sclera by a sharp razor blade. This incision is frown-shaped to try and keep it within the astigmatic neutral funnel area. The scleral tunnel is then dissected out with a lamellar dissector, also known as a tunnel blade. It is important to hold the level of the dissection and not to go too deep, in which case there will be a premature entry into the anterior chamber. It is also important not to go too superficial, in which case there will be a buttonholing of the cornea. A continuous circular capsulorhexis is then done. This is done under aqueous with a 26 gauge needle by direct entry into the anterior chamber. Though doing the capsulorhexis under aqueous does have the disadvantage that the flap tends to flap around a little, but it has the great advantage of minimizing the use of viscoelastic, which leads to a quieter postoperative eye. The anterior chamber is then entered through the scleral tunnel with a 3.2 mm keratome, and then this entry is expanded with a 6 mm keratome. The scleral tunnel is then expanded in a funnel-shaped manner by using a keratome to widen the point of entry into the anterior chamber on both sides. An additional port of entry into the anterior chamber is made in the inferior quadrant. The original small port of entry of the 26 gauge needle into the eye is also widened slightly. The next step is to free the nucleus by hydrodissection and then rotate it into the anterior chamber. Viscoelastic is now injected into the anterior chamber above and below the nucleus for the first and only time to cushion the nucleus in the next step of extraction from the anterior chamber. A vectis is used to extract the nucleus from the anterior chamber. A blast cannula, which is nothing but a blunt-tipped 16 or 18 gauge high-flow cannula, is used to flush the epinucleus out of the anterior chamber. Cortex is then removed by irrigation aspiration through a double-barreled Simcoe irrigation aspiration cannula. The extra port of entry into the anterior chamber, made in the inferior quadrant earlier, allows the Simcoe cannula to be introduced from inferiorly and have direct access to the subincisional cortex at 12 o'clock in a simple and direct way. Finally, a single piece PMMA IOL is introduced into the anterior chamber through the scleral tunnel while the anterior chamber is maintained by an AC maintainer introduced through the inferior side port incision. The lens is dialed into the capsular bag using a dialer. Though many claim that they get good astigmatic results without suturing, a single suture is useful to keep the surgically induced astigmatism to less than 1 diopter. And finally, the conjunctiva is helped to overlap the scleral wound without suturing or cautery by injecting fluid or antibiotic into the Tenon's fascia under the superior conjunctiva.